Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is the High Caliber Man podcast with myself, Hugh Mayers. And this week, I am joined by two special guests who usually host me. I've got DJ Supreme and Lady Essie from Conscious Radio's More Knowledge Talk Show. I'd like to welcome you both to the platform. How you doing, guys?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Hugh, it's a pleasure to be here, I love your front room. It's a lot better than mine one now. I was looking on it and thinking, wow, what a front room.
It's the laminate. It's a laminate. We're doing it modern. We're doing it big in 2024. But yeah, it's kind of not strange, but a little bit different because usually I jump on the More Knowledge show and you guys always have these fascinating topics to discuss and we go deep. And I'm hoping that we could still have that kind of like level of conversation. But this time, I guess I'll be throwing some of the questions your way, to posing the questions to the both of you. So recently there was a video circulating showing I think it's on Jason Whitlock's YouTube channel. I will put a copy of the video in the actual YouTube comments or video description, should I say, to make it available. But I didn't want to show it on shared screen because there's a kind of split feeling about feeling like I'm promoting it, but at the same time, I want people to, if they want to take the choice, to have a look at it. But I'll just describe it briefly. We've all seen it, as in us three have all seen it, and it is blurred in certain places. But there's a young man, I say young man, actually there's a child, a boy. The video says that he's 9 years old. He may be slightly older, but he's in no doubt a child. And he is in a, what do you call it? A strip club, for one, or a lap dancing club or whatever, pole dancing club, having a dance. And there are adults egging him on and there are grown women, gyrating on him. And the question arises as to what is happening when that is seen as a viral moment or something that's cool or encouraged. What's going on with respect to protecting that boy, adultification of children, particularly the Black children? There is talk about we don't protect girls in society, in Black culture. Are we protecting boys? Issues related to rites of passage, so many different things. Getting him ready for manhood. What does that mean? It's a loaded term. Does it mean teaching him some values and things like honor and bravery and discipline and accountability? Or does it mean, learning how to, anyway. Lady Essie, DJ Supreme, who would like to go first? Your first thoughts on what came to mind when you saw that video?
Where was his responsible adult? Who let him in, and the club owner, like all the adults around. Why did they not question there was a 9-year-old boy in there? So like even those in there, did anyone question it? Who recorded it? Did the person? Yeah, it's like who? Yeah, where were the adults to kind of advocate for him and say this shouldn't be happening?
Was he shocked by that video, or is that something that you might has popped up in popular culture before or seen something like that before?
I wasn't. It sounds bad to say I wasn't shocked by it because in the age of internet, there is so much we see now that you just kind of think people just be videoing everything. But it's more sad to see. It's sad, I said, that the adults around actually filmed it enough or actually participated in it. No one shut it down. No one questioned it. And they filmed it and put it up. So it's representative of, as I like to say, the age of internet, where everyone's filming anything and everything and putting it up like, yeah, this is great. Well, it's not a good reflection of the culture because it isn't a good reflection of it, because there are a good representation of culture, but this is not one of them.
Less than ideal. Before I bring Supreme in, I just wanted to just ask you something else, Lady Essie, and that was like, how can I put this? There's sometimes the speculation around getting him ready for manhood. That there's this kind of idea in sometimes where older men take young boys to see an adult woman for pleasurable activity of one nature or another. But it seems to be a kind of in the scenario of a sort of sexualized behavior. I'm quite uncomfortable about that. But this idea of getting him ready for manhood, what's your thoughts about?
Well, you can't get a 9-year-old ready for manhood. He's 9. You know, he's not even at the age for rites of passage. Isn't rites of passage when you're like 12, 13, in a sense. So to say he's getting, and what manhood are you teaching him? How are you teaching him how to respond to women? At 9, he should be wanting to play outside, you know, riding his bike, doing his homework. At 9, this is not what he should be thinking about. But what manhood are you teaching him? What the man, is he teaching his notion of what manhood is, that, you know, you need to be around women? And then you're not even teaching him how to deal with women in a respectful way either. So they're teaching him a lack of respect for himself and for women. And if it was a girl, there would have been a lot more uproar as well, because, you know, because it's like a double standard. Because it's a boy, it's like, yeah, pat on the back, he's a boy, so he can be taught. But you wouldn't have a young girl of the same age in that type of situation and people be praising it as, yeah, you're teaching her for womanhood.
Yes.
You wouldn't. It's a double standard. And it's a double standard that goes throughout the lives of boys, that teaches them. So that's a double standard that they've already planted that seed of double standard already.
There is a disturbing double standard in society. I would say Western societies. I don't know how it works in the East, in Asia, in Africa, but let's say Europe, the Americas, Canada, these type of places. I know there's a double standard. Even recently, there was a case where a 13-year-old child, impregnated a 30-year-old woman, and they have struck a plea bargain or some type of plea deal where she will not serve any time whatsoever as part of a plea bargain. She will not serve any time. And so the offense that begins with the letter R and finishes with the letter E, the reason why statistically they will talk about it being disproportionately carried out against, you know, males vis-a-vis females, because it isn't even codified to include the reverse. However, in that case, it's clearly the same offense as had it been a man impregnating a teenage girl, for example. It would have been, a clean cut, clear, nothing ambiguous, no need to rub your chin, no need to say, this is quite complex. Let's get the books of jurisprudence out to work through this, because this is a very unusual. No, it will be straightforward. He is a criminal, and let's have him behind bars to keep people safe. But when it's the other way around, they don't even codify it. It's not even recorded in the same way. So then it's kind of misleading. So yeah, there is.
Yeah, you're right. There is
a double standard, and
it's even reported very differently. They don't even use the same language.
That's my point. That's my point. It's not codified. It's not recorded. Yeah, it's not recorded. So it gives misleading stats. As you can tell, I'm a little bit amped. But before we move on, I do want to bring Supreme in. DJ Supreme, here at us. You saw the clip.
Before you move on that clip, you know what came to mind? I was on Instagram and I saw a little short clip of a woman gyrating herself, bending over, and this guy was behind her, probably the same age as her. And they must have been at a christening or a wedding or something. Then this little boy, who was her son, runs in and pushes the man off the mum. And the little boy, like, you could see it on his face, what are you doing with my mum? Because he's realized that's not his dad and what's going on here. And it really was how the young boy saw his mum and with this stranger and doing this act, like this dancing. We might see, when we're going out, this is how we behave. But the son saw it as, no, hold on, what's going on here?
I've seen it, Supreme. Sorry to cut you, but I've seen it, and I initially thought it was a spoof, because I'd seen one clip where he gets in and pushes the guy away, and then it cuts. So I thought, oh, hey, it's some sort of spoof. But then I saw another clip on the channel, I think Dr. Tiasan Johnson. Shout out to Dr. Tiasan Johnson. He showed a clip on one of his shows, and he showed it a little bit longer, where you see the boy go off by himself and start to break down and cry. And that's when I was like, oh,
that's what I saw. The boy would start to get emotional.
Yeah, he broke down. He broke down, man.
Right now, getting back to that clip where we saw this young boy and he's in a strip club, and I'm gonna say that when we see this sort of normalization of this behavior and being put on YouTube, are we rewarding failure? Because this is a failure that's come through, and we're seeing this failure now as entertainment. Now, to me, when I look at this, I'm thinking, okay, this young boy, you brought him in, you're having a laugh. It's only, you probably say it's only a bit of fun. But what happens when that boy leaves that strip club and is in another situation where he starts mimicking what he's been taught?
Yes, yes, yes. When he goes
Especially,
elsewhere to reenact.
yeah, but especially if the young boy does it with someone of his age. He would be, he'd be taken out of school. The parents or whoever's parents would be saying, your son is too sexualized, and this is what he's doing with another youngster of the same age. But then, you know what? I'm going to say this, and there was a situation where I was working at a certain workplace, and the young boy was taken on as an apprentice. No, what do you call this? No, work experience.
Okay.
And the cleaner was there, who was a woman, a mature woman. And what this young boy done, when she bent over, he slapped her bum. And then he went up to her and he started to feel up her breast.
Wow.
So the cleaner, this is a black woman and a young black boy.
Yeah.
And the cleaner did not know what to do. So she was like kind of traumatized. And she went to another black person who said, no, you've got to report it because he's on work experience. And it was a funny situation because this has never ever happened in a workplace.
Yeah.
Where, you know, work experience. But what it displayed is his behavior around the elder, possibly when he's at home.
What you mean? Like, does it ask questions? Does it ask questions as into what has he been exposed to?
Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
No, I said I was wondering if it kind of raised questions to the adults that were around. They started to wonder, what has this boy been exposed to? Because usually when children act in a way that is, obviously children are, you know, like teenagers, whatever, you work with children like year 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. They're growing up in it, and they're going through puberty. So there's going to be elements of maybe certain type of language that be used, certain type of behavior, right? That might be, okay, this is a sign of puberty. Right? Yeah. And it's gonna be something like that where you're thinking that ain't puberty. That might be like, okay, this is I need to fill in a safeguarding form, and you know, that kind of thing. Like, okay, something else a bit more disturbing might be going on that he's learning, and this needs to be looked into by a professional, you know, like for child protection purposes.
Yeah. But it's very interesting where situations like this happen. Yeah. And I think this is more before this safeguarding really came in, and they were tightening up on things. And now you have to have a DBS and all these criminal records wherever you work with vulnerable, so-called child safety vulnerable. But the point I was going to make is that when we look at what is going on, I'm finding, I know I'm straying a bit, but this is one of the things that I have realized years later, especially a lot of females, when they hit a certain age, you're hearing them talking, oh, I was, what's the word? Not raped, but I was, you know, touched up by my uncle when I was 9 years old. And I've hidden it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I've hidden it and stored it, and I've grown up to a certain age now, and all these things are coming out. And this is what I've found out with a lot of, I'm going to say a lot of women my age. They what's this word? Like years later, they're breaking down saying, oh, when I was young, this person done this to me. And the reason why I find they begin to come out, because they're triggered by, you see, something like we just saw with
Yes,
a
yes.
young boy, or a celebrity, or let's go there with issues with let's say your R. Kelly's, when you have predators out there.
Yeah.
Recently, right? I know I'm straying a bit, but a young
Don't worry, man. We're gonna bring you back in a minute,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want you
A
to
young
land. I
lady,
want you to get a chance to land.
yeah, yeah. No, well, I go off and I go off on because I realized something. Because even a situation on Saturday, and I spoke up at an event. A young lady got up. She's launching her book. She has said, look, I would say she's late 50s. She's now launching her book called Behind the Mask. Behind the Mask. Anyway, she's launching a book anyway, if you want to Google it. But she has come out and said she was abused, I do believe, 7 times by at a certain young age. And now she's dealing with it. And she's written her book so that other women who have gone through this situation can read her book and see her story. Now, I put up my hand and I asked her a question. And I said, but this, what you're doing, you may be triggering people as well as you telling your story, but you're actually triggering people. You're actually triggering them that they could be depressed or they could be suicidal because they're thinking about if they were in that situation. But a problem that that's the question. I'm trying to articulate the question.
What about triggering people?
Yeah, but the other thing is, I said, do we know why people don't, or young people when they are sexually assaulted?
I could say a bit from a professional point of view, having
Yeah.
worked with in different contexts as a therapist, as an assessor, working in safeguarding, just in different spheres of at least some of the reasons why I'm familiar why some people don't report or they report later on.
Right.
It might be to do with the age. I'm definitely want Lady Essie to come in and say a bit about this as well from a female perspective, but professional perspective. But it might be to do with the age and the awareness of what was actually taking place, the gravity of it. I'd even, just for an example, I'd even spoke to somebody many, many years ago, was a male, from let's say from another culture, because I want to maintain the confidentiality of the client, but he was from a non-Western culture. And he had been, assaulted by a relative. And he shared with me that at that age, as a teenager, in his culture, they don't talk about intimacy and things of that nature. He didn't even really, he knew something weren't right, but he didn't even have the language, the articulation, the framework to actually go and say to his parents, A, B, and C took place, done by D, can you deal with, help? He didn't know what to do. And so it was something that he experienced for a period of time. You know what I mean? Because he just didn't know. And just as he got older and, he kind of like clicked to him that, you know what? Wow, I need to leave this situation. You know what I'm saying? So it can be for those reasons that this person's so young or they don't have that power. They're afraid, or sometimes victims suffer shame. It's weird that they didn't do the shameful action. They were a victim of something shameful done to them. You know what I mean? But they're the ones that carry the shame, if that makes sense.
Well, it's interesting because if it's a relative or even closer, the person that has violated or the person that has violated them, they look at that person as somebody special. So they may even feel, oh, that's my dad. This is my dad. This is my mum. So they're not going to
it might be all part. It might be all part. It could be also part of the manipulation. Also part of the manipulation. But Lady Essie, I wanted to really interesting points there though. Robert Supreme. But I wanted to bring in Lady Essie because I wanted to ask you something about adultification. the term from the social sciences, adultification, and I want to talk about it with it intersectionally. So talking about it with respect to Black males, it happens to different groups, different genders, different races, right? But could you say a little bit about the term in general, and we could look at it in the context of
in terms of the context for Black boys, adultification would sort of view Black boys more as they're seen as troublemakers from a young age. They probably seen as older and less innocent than other boys from different cultures, and they're probably, when they're playing, or they're probably seen as more dangerous, more violent, probably like might be exposed to more sexual material. So it's just treating them older than their age actually is. Like if a child is young, they're treating them like they're much older. Or if something happens, so like in a classroom, if there was an incident, the Black boys may likely get a harsher punishment because they may be deemed as seem older rather than their peers from other cultures. So advocation is how we make, and I think in this age of internet, advocation probably happens a lot more because children are probably not children as much because they're exposed to a lot more adult themes at a younger age. They probably don't get to experience childhood as much as probably previous generations had a chance to have childhoods where children as young as 9 are having to make some decisions that they probably shouldn't even be thinking about, and dealing with things they shouldn't even have to think about or even see. Because obviously when you've got, with having a device, they can click onto things and see things their little mind shouldn't be seeing.
So let's look at adultification.
Can I just say something here?
Oh, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
I just really want to come in here. As soon as you said the word adultification, you went straight to Black. So is there a word for when
I specifically said let's look at it in the context of Black boys.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. I said intentionality. So I want to look particularly at that group.
Yeah. So is there adultification for white boys?
Well, no, it comes under the racial.
It can be for any group. It's usually minorities. I think Lady Essie was sharing.
Yeah, it's normally.
I'm just saying, because even when I looked up the
it's a form of racial. It's a form of racial prejudice. So it is more typically applied to minority groups.
But that's the point that I was gonna go to.
It can happen to girls. It can happen to girls.
It can happen to girls as well.
It might happen to girls that they're sexualized, seen as sexualized or whatever. You know, unfortunately, we have this thing where, you know, these grown men will be like trying to chat to young girls and sort of trying to interest them and stuff like that. And they're kind of dealt with as older. But it happens to boys as well. But oftentimes the boys is more like with the authorities, with law enforcement, when Black boys are stopped by the police, for example, and they're you know, like year 9s or something like that, but the police is dealing with them like they're 17-year-olds, like they're young adults or something like that. They're like cool boys.
So it is for your listeners, advocation bias is a stereotype based on the ways in which adults perceive children and their childlike behavior, but it's rooted in anti-Black racism. So it is something that is related to racism and discrimination. So
and within our own culture, I would say, when it's like, yeah, Black on Black violence, I would say when there's Black on Black adultification, I would say sometimes when it's with girls and it happens, say, for example, in the family, but with females, it might be you only talk, but you find yourself changing. She might find herself changing the nappy of a baby sibling and having to look after and start the put the food on and go and collect this one from nursery and collect this one from you know, secondary school and all sorts of stuff like that. And she might be like just a teenager herself. Whereas with boys, it seems to boys are groomed into things like gangs, right? So to criminality and stuff like that. So then they might be, the internal identification is giving them assignment tasks and things to do around violence and criminality that is above their age. And that's when we do it to ourselves. But I want to just gently move the conversation along, and these are all really relevant and powerful points. But I want to bring it on to something about culture. The word Black has a load of meanings from the 1960s and the Black Panther movement and the Black Power movement and etc. And there are many ethnic groups that would probably be classified as black, but we're talking about it from or could be classified as black, but we're talking about it from kind of Western point of view, westernized. So whether it's on a continent, whether it's in the US, whether it's in the Caribbean, Canada, etc. But that kind of culture that is influenced by the various music genres, the most popular music genres, the videos, the visuals that go with that. What's going on with black culture in the 2024 and 21st century? Lady Essie, talk to me.
As I said earlier on, I believe it's because the social media, the age of internet media anyway, will always amplify the side of culture that isn't always so pleasant. So you're not going to do the good news stories. You're not going to do the nicer parts of culture. They don't get as much. They don't go viral. Because you've always had negative aspects of culture in every generation. It's just now
in all cultures, to be fair, right?
And in all cultures, in every
part of human condition. It's part of
human conditions. You have good and bad. You know, duality is the nature of human way.
Yeah.
However, as humans are, you're going to always amplify the negative. Negative gets more views. It gets people talking. You're not going to have look at a conversation, how a conversation started on what we saw. We wouldn't be having a conversation if it was about seeing a 9-year-old boy reading a book on a train. It wouldn't.
I'm guilty then. I'm fallen prey because there is a shock factor, because I do see videos that come across my WhatsApp, for example. It would say like, do you know that the youngest person with the person with the highest IQ in Great Britain is a young boy of Nigerian descent or something like that. Like I do see videos like that, but they kind of whiz by. But this one, I was horrified. I was mortified. I was shocked.
But it's human nature. We are going to notice things that are out of what the norm, but there are lots more positive stories out there. Just the ones that go viral are always going to be the more you see, that's their cultures like that, the evidence of, you know, and it's always been by the media, music, a film, everything else. We're always going to amplify the more negative side of a culture. So I don't think there's anything wrong with our culture. I just believe the age of internet has allowed the more negative side to be amplified. Like same thing with you. Sometimes you get the nice, good news stories. How many of those do we share? We don't share them. We just kind of go, oh yeah, that was good news. And we don't share it. We just let it go. But everybody will share. Every time there's a real incident that's really bad, you would get it on your WhatsApp about 20 times. You'll just be bombarded with the same story, but you wouldn't get the good news story more than once or twice.
Okay.
Regarding culture, yeah, I'm just going to go back when just growing up and watching television, and even myself looking, and you know, you ask questions, but sometimes you don't ask questions, but you know, when you're young. And it was very interesting when we used to, on television, look at me in the UK looking at people in Africa. And when we looked at, you know, an African village, for instance, you would see people walking around stark naked, yeah, toolbox hanging out, they're just walking and it's normal for them, right? But when that was their culture. But don't you think it's interesting that in the West, they sexualize the body, the way the breasts, your toolkit hanging, you walking around. Whereas when we were in Africa and we see it on telly, that was normal. That was the culture. We walked around like that. But it's interesting when you come in the West, how they sexualize things and groom us a certain way. And again, growing up in the UK, watching television, I don't know how old you are, Hugh, right? But
I'm old, man. I'm old as dirt, man. I'm old as dirt.
Yeah. I remember watching this program. You may see it now, called Caligula. Is it Caligula?
I heard of that movie. Yeah,
well, it was a drama series that was on BBC, and they had Caligula, and they had one called I Claudius, and it was the Romans.
Mm-hmm.
But what got me, this was on television as a drama. And even if you go in the British Museum, they actually talk about the size of the penis, why the penis is, you know, why, you know, if you see the Romans, then they've got very small penises. There's a whole science that, but it was just interesting. Caligula, if you ever get a chance to watch Caligula and I, Claudius, they were just men, you know, half naked, all around a swimming pool, eating grapes and just having sex with each other and
So,
animals.
so do you mean that it's about the normalization of certain things?
Yeah, but I was like, wow. So this is why they said that in Rome, they were doing these kind of sexual activities as if it was normal. That was their culture.
Okay, okay.
And I was scratching my head, and I know they were putting it on television, but were they? And when we look at the word program, were they programming us in this country to say this should be seen as normal? This is normal. You know,
That's a really good question.
normal, like, yeah,
Now that's a
yeah.
really good question because I guess what comes to mind is more like, I mean, that was history and society's moving stages, right? And there's one argument to say that society's moving stages, and you've got the people who discover things, you've got the pioneers that flesh out new lands or build new buildings, and societies go through certain cycles. And one of the cycles towards the end is decadence, is degeneracy, sexual deviancy. And when that becomes norm in society, that's like a clock telling you, you know what, it's near midnight, you know, it's about to dawn, the party's nearly over. You know what I mean? And it looks like Western culture, right? Western cultures or Western society, for whatever the term may mean in its broadest sense, yeah, that these views and values are unsustainable, these practices are unsustainable, and that there will be some sort of crash. The phoenix will burn up before it rises from the ashes again. That's one perspective, and I find that interesting because there does seem to be a pattern with human beings, and between the moderns and the ancients, there's some links between how we operate, you know, while we operate. But I'm just aware that we've almost run out of time. We've got through so much information, but I want to ask you both a couple more questions, and just to get a bit of feedback. Last talking point before we wind down is Erykah Badu, seen recently on Facebook and on social media with her cheeks out. Erykah's 54. Erykah is an empowered woman. Erykah is a multimillionaire. She's an artist. Or is she all right in the head? Like, what's she doing? Doesn't she have the dignity to know that throughout stages in life, we develop, we evolve, and we move on to what's appropriate behavior? We must have cultural mores. We must have some morals and expectations. What say you, Lady Essie?
I saw it. I didn't have no strong views either way. I just, as she's an artist, is what Erykah does, right? Erykah is the artist that likes to do the shock culture factor because she knows everyone's going to talk about her, and everyone is. Erykah's always, that's how she's always kind of roamed, right? She's always kind of she kind of doesn't let anyone she doesn't put herself in a box. I feel, I mean, I think before that there was another conversation where someone, I think it was on Instagram, that talked about saying that she was she needs to retire because she's old, and she kind of did a really great clap back about what does old mean, who said it, who said when you reach a certain age you're old, who set the norms, who set it, who said by this you should be doing this. When whose norms are we sticking to? It's there's a lot of discussions about how it's a very ageist society, especially in the West, but in other parts of the world it isn't so it's like, who sets the standards, who says you can and can't do, what should you be doing at a particular age? So for Erykah Badu, the kind of artist she is, if you follow her work, she always does things to show. I mean, didn't she have her perfume that what she named it as? You know what I mean? So Erykah's that kind of artist that, as an artist, talk about her. If she's got a book, has she got a new single coming out that she needs people to go buy it? Is that her good marketing? She knows
Okay.
sex sells. She knows sex sells. You know, so you know, how do you keep yourself relevant in this day of noise? A lot of noise. How
Mm.
do
Do you remember when Madonna, who's a big old woman in age, right? She was
yes.
doing that, and people were like, I feel really sad. It's almost like your drunk auntie. Your drunk auntie got her cleavage out, and she's like nearly a pensioner. It's like trying to wind up on a young man. It's like this look. Oh my God, save her. Tell her to calm down. Get her. Oh God, like it's embarrassing.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know if you
yes,
saw the
it's
cheeks.
embarrassing, but I said, as artists, is it clever marketing on their part because they
Well, is
manage?
it? Is it? Because
Yeah, because people are
how
talking
do
about
you
it.
the question is, how do you stay relevant forever? Sounds like when your art speaks for itself, but when it's more about the shock, and when it's more about the gimmick, and when it's more about watch the hand because you don't need to see what's going on over here. Some people might say, man, she knows she dropped off her shape, so that's why she's getting the cheeks out now.
Mm.
Because there was a time when she could sing and impress us with a art form in and of itself, and that was enough.
Yeah, I mean, I hear the point, but I said I would look at it. Is it clever way of, you know, doing things as a shock factor because she's kind of always done it anyway. And like I said, in the age of a lot of noise, how do you cut through it? Because obviously, if once you reach a certain age, you are put on like a shelf life as like, yeah, you're done here. We need to focus on those up and coming. So if you reach a certain age, how do you, like, if you're not retiring and you're going to continue doing what it is that you love doing, when you reach, how do you keep doing it if that's what you've always been used to, if attention has always been, because I guess right now the currency of the world now is attention, because that is the greatest currency, is attention.
And some people do struggle to
Yeah.
not be in the limelight, innit?
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
attention is the greatest currency and that's what you've always known and that's what you always do, and that's your addiction to attention, then you're always going to be looking for that attention. Some people are happy to, once they reach a certain point, just kind of go into, like, you know, that slow down behind the scenes, do their thing, and that's what they do. Others, you know, they're going to stay like Mick Jagger. Doesn't he sometimes still go on stage at his age and still do things? And how many other
Go on
old,
stage,
old
go on stage, yeah,
did
man.
you get me? And there's others that are still performing at 70 or 80, still turning up and doing their thing, you know, they're still, but you're like, shouldn't you be just relaxing and having a cup of tea? So
I hear that. I hear that. Let me bring in Supreme. Get some
Yeah,
feedback.
it's you know, you just got me so thinking about the music industry. And you know, when we look at artists when they were, let's say, 10 years ago, a decade ago, and then you look at them now, some kind of become prim and proper. Some would still, you know, like you said, I haven't seen this thing of Erykah Badu, but she's just one of my favorite artists, you know. But I, I feel kind of sorry for a lot of artists because they have become public property, and everything they do, the public see. And the thing is that I actually think that some of these artists can get addicted to doing things to themselves to make them feel comfortable. And you know, you're talking about Badu, and when you say cheeks, are you talking about her bum or you with
Yeah,
chest?
yes,
Right.
Botox.
So when we look at, we could,
G-string-esque were both pictures. Not G-strings, but that kind of
yeah,
view. That was that type of view was on offer.
yeah. You know, one thing I would say, and for me, this is probably my moral compass, is personally, if I feel comfortable to be like that in front of my family and my daughter, you know, if I, you know, oh, come on, mum, or like, you know, that's how